Welcome back to another episode of Raising the Bar, TKJ Podcast. Today, in this episode, we hear from Brandon Saiz, owner of NCB Mechanical LLC. What's going on, man? How are you?
Thank you for having me. It was cool to meet up with you a few weeks back, and I appreciate the opportunity to even be on here. So thank you.
Dude, right on, man. I'm eager to hear what you got to say in your story. So,
Yeah.
As far as like your business and what you do, what inspired you to get into this business, into this field?
What inspired me, was to make a difference in people's lives. That's the basic side of it, right? But I felt like I brought a lot of value and a different strategy to this business. I'm a very fast-paced person, and I saw the way things were done at other places and other companies, and I just truly felt like I can make a difference. My job is to put a platform for people to win and be successful, and I believe that's what I'm working towards every day.
Okay, so as far as being positive, that is really cool to hear. Now, as everyone, especially entrepreneurs, as we all have to face these, overcome challenges and things like that. So when it comes to overcoming challenges and setbacks as a startup, how were you able to do that as you began to grow?
Yeah, so that's kind of the name of the game, right? As an entrepreneur, there's so much high and lows and ebbs and flows is kind of the better way to put it. One of the best things that I did was I kept tunnel vision. You know it. We all know it as business owners or whatever. But you are hit with endless distractions and endless problems and endless issues. And what I stayed focused on is exactly what I wanted. And there was strictly just tunnel vision. And it allowed me to block out the noise and all of the distractions that happened because it doesn't stop. It's daily, it's hourly, it's minutes, it doesn't matter. You could have the best day, but that best day still had about 50 issues and problems that you had to solve. So to answer your question is tunnel vision and just staying bulletproof, focused on where I was trying to get to.
Okay. And I agree with you, man. That's one of the most important things about being a business owner is really staying focused and staying on track.
Yeah.
So now with that focus and the alignment that you're setting up, opportunities come, they go, but how have you been able to identify and seize opportunities within this industry and give us an idea of the industry that you're in and what you do?
So as a business, we do heating, cooling, and plumbing. We do all that stuff. What helped me seize opportunity was kind of endless studying, but also following people that have done what I've done and really scaled and grew business. You have to act very quickly in business. You have to act fast, and things move so quickly that you have to respond quickly. And that's how I kind of seize the opportunity is trying to respond and be as quick as possible.
Okay, so with that motion and what you're doing, I know there's got to be a balance, right? Because we all have lives, some of us have families and things like that. So as you're pursuing your dream, your business, these opportunities, there's got to be a balance there. So how have you been able to maintain a balance between work, personal life, right? Self-care, and having fun in general as a business owner?
Well, that's a really good question. To answer it directly, I don't know that you find much balance, but you do have to try. The things that I try to do is I try to go to the gym. I enjoy golfing. I'm into kickboxing and jujitsu, and I do all of that because it gives me some kind of balance, but the girlfriend, the job, the employees, you're dragged in. I shouldn't even say dragged. The drag isn't the right word. You are pulled constantly in 1,000 different directions. So is there ever truly a balance? I haven't found it yet. I'm 4 years into it. So I'm still developing that balance, right? But the little bit of balance that I do find comes from gym, golf, and the other things that I mentioned, because it's tough.
Absolutely. So being 4 years into it, still seeing these ebbs and flows of being a business owner, how do you manage the financial aspect of what you do, like funding, budgeting, right? Increasing cash flow, maintaining those things within your industry compared to your competition in the area?
Yeah, well, it was really tough actually to start. I'd like to start from the beginning of that because I don't know if a lot of people know, but when I was first starting, I wasn't able to get a loan until after 2 years from banks and all of that. So to answer your question, it was very tough. And I kind of self-managed a lot of it, to be honest. I still haven't gotten a big loan from the bank, maybe for vehicles and stuff, but to answer your question, it's a lot of self-managing. I try to be extremely disciplined with the money that comes in and the money that goes out. And I can tell you now, after 4 years, it's the cash flow has picked up and it has become a lot more steady. And it's a completely different side of business, right? There's certain systems you have to put into place, and there's certain marketing strategies that you have to put into place, because it was tough. And I would say that it's still pretty tough, but it's part of the game, and this is where we're at. And like I said, I self-manage a lot of it, and we've grown and scaled a lot. We've purchased 14 vehicles. We have 4 billboards. So we do all right, but it isn't there was nothing ever given to me or handed to me as far as banks or anything like that.
Okay, now along those lines, because we have a lot of people, especially in the line of work that I'm in, a lot of people that they give up. So when you were approaching those banks and going through it, as people say, right? How were you able to keep going? What was the driving force that said, hey, I want to keep going? This bank said no, but I'm going to go to another one. Tell us a little bit about that and how you were able to get through that.
Yeah, so well, first of all, I'm just not a quitter. I mean, my dad, that was the first thing he's ever told me, kind of, is make sure you never quit, because if you do it once, you'll never do it again. But to answer your question, yeah, it's happened several times, and finally we're with a much bigger bank, which is Chase. But we battled a lot with a few other small banks, especially when we were getting loans for the building and stuff like that. I can go on pretty long story about one of our big bank loans for the building that we bought, that we're currently in, that it completely fell through. And I just kept being persistent and going from bank to bank, and finally kind of coming up with something that was able to work for us. Because especially now, I mean, I'm sure everyone that's going to listen to this knows, but the bank, the interest rates and how challenging it is. And I mean, a better thing is the profit and loss statement. That's a whole nother game, is the tax game, because you want to write off losses and you want to do all that stuff. But if you show a loss every year, then you didn't make anything and they're not going to lend you anything. So it is a huge spider web of a game, and it's been incredibly challenging, but I love it. It's part of it. And to answer your question, that's what we did. We went from bank to bank until we could, finally negotiate a deal, get an interest rate that we liked. And again, after that, it was self-managed, as far as, okay, we can handle this, and this is what we'll pay, and this is what the interest rate is that we're going to work with.
Oh, yeah, that's cool to hear, man. It's the vision. Seems like you had a vision in mind, a direction you want to go, and nothing's going to stop you. And a lot of times as entrepreneurs, that's kind of the attitude that we have to have. We have to start living with. So much respect, when
Yeah.
it comes to your determination. Now, other entrepreneurs, other people, they're going to want to get into business. And we've heard this term, I'm sure you've heard it: take what you're passionate about and make it a business. When it comes to people listening and watching this, what kind of advice do you have for aspiring entrepreneurs who are looking to turn their passion into a profitable venture or a profitable business?
Yeah. So, I don't know if I'll answer it the way it's supposed to be answered, to be honest, but I don't know. I don't know that it's about loving what you do. I think that it's about being good at what you do. I started HVAC basically as a young kid. I was digging trenches and putting in gas lines as a 10, 12 year old. And it wasn't a passion. I didn't wake up and say, oh, I just love this, I can't do it. What I found out is that I was very good at it, and I knew how to optimize it. So my advice to people would be to find something you're very good at and run with it. Because what's hard is, especially the demographic and the age that we live in, everything's about fun and kumbaya and just do what you love and sunshine and rainbows, but it's not always that way. And it's never been that way for just me. I had to get up and make it happen, and I found what I was very good at. A few other things that I would talk about, though, is being extremely confident. I've been told that I'm confident, and that's probably one of my biggest skill sets. Is I never believe I'm out of a fight. And if you're going to be an entrepreneur, you're going to be in a fight every single day. It's not something that you wake up and there's no easy days. It's business is a sport as well. And that sport is endless, and it is the most competitive sport that you will ever get involved with, because it is endless competition, it's endless problems, it's endless things that you have to consistently solve. And that's leading me into my other part, is you need to be a problem solver. because you are expected to handle everything. You are, when people come into my office, they want answers and they want solutions. They're not coming in there to just, hang out, maybe sometimes, of course, right? But they're calling about a job that needs to get handled. And you have to be competent, a problem solver, and have it be something that you are good at, not just that you love. If it was just something that I loved, I would have been an MMA fighter, and I would have ran with that, and I would have made 10 and 10, to show up and to win. This is something that I was good at. I optimized it and I made it happen. So that would be those three things would be huge.
I love it. So I tell people, there's finite thinking and there's infinite thinking, right? Finite is there's a start, a middle, and an end where most mindsets are, but
Yeah.
infinite thinking is business. Business is there's never ending. And I totally agree with you, man. Being able to have that mindset that this is going to continue and I have to learn to love what I'm good at. And I believe in doing what you're passionate about, but sometimes that passion doesn't bring in dollars.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's
So
a
to even
hobby.
add on to that, there's parts of the business that I don't love. I don't necessarily just love looking at a P&L, and I don't necessarily just love looking at schedules. It's part of what I have to do. So that's kind of what I was getting at with that whole find what you're good at and then just see it through, because that's what it is. In business, you can find something that you love, and if you try to grow something, you're going to find a whole lot about it that you hate, that you don't enjoy. It's a grind, especially when you're trying to put systems and people in place and develop like a management team. We're finally at 20 people, and yeah, 20 people after 4 years. And you learn that it changes in segments. And I see how much I've had to shift and pivot when we had myself, and when we had 3 people, and then when we had 10 people, and when we had 15 people, and parts of it I have not enjoyed. As a whole, yes, I've enjoyed it. But yes, I mean, that's how it goes. I mean, it's an endless, constant battle. I wouldn't change it for nothing, but
I
people need to
agree.
remember that it's. I see it especially with guys in my field, the contractor field. What they do is they go to a job. They go to a job and they're like, "Oh man, we made him 50% on this job, and the equipment only cost us X amount." But they don't see the workman's comp that had to get paid on that job. They don't see the insurance that had to get paid on that job. They don't see the overhead as far as rent, utilities, all of that. And no, that's the stuff that I hate. Do I enjoy doing HVAC? Yes. Do I love talking to workman's comp and then getting a $23,000 bill like we got 2 years ago? No, absolutely not. And then I have to figure out how to pay it, what to do with it, how to manage the money. There's parts of it that you are going to hate. So yeah.
I got you, man. So now along the lines, we all learn lessons. Sometimes we teach them where we can. But can you give us one lesson you've learned as a business owner that isn't taught in school?
One lesson that I've learned in business that was not taught in school. I mean, man, I feel like I could make a laundry list because nothing that I do now applies to it. Ultimately, they don't teach you anything about mindset. And I see that with a lot of kids that come in and a lot of people that talk about business and work. There is no mindset or real life knowledge. In school, you're taught out of a book, and then you take a test, and then you pass it or you don't pass it. Life is the ultimate test. And they don't teach you how to balance your mind, how to be extremely persistent, and how to stay focused. Especially doing what we do in the business world, it's an endless game. It's always work. Whereas in school, all I had to do was copy and paste answers and write it on my pencil and hide it under my desk. Well, that stuff doesn't apply here. There is no cheat code, and there is no cheat sheet, and there is no study sheet. I have to study people. I have to study people that are really doing this. And that's what I would say is they didn't teach a real life aspect as far as your mindset and how you have to approach everything, and that not everything's just going to be perfect and fun and enjoyable. And that we have the participation trophy era, and that's not real. I get it. It is what it is. It's not my thing, but it's not real. And if you really want to do something with your life, you're gonna have to bend some rules here a little bit. You know what I mean? You're gonna have to think outside the box, and you're gonna have to be extremely focused and persistent. We live in a world full of distractions. Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, internet, you name it, it's a distraction. So that's the kind of the stuff that I'm talking about. Is they didn't teach you a mindset of how to stay focused, how to set a goal, how to accomplish it, what rooms to get in, who you should talk to, people you should follow. They don't teach you that. And it's a game within itself.
It is, man. So now I'm sure you've gotten advice and things like that along the way as you've been growing and developing. Give our listeners one piece of business advice that's stuck with you as you've been on this journey.
Yeah, that's a great question. This one I just kind of figured out. Maybe it's simple, maybe it's spectacular for someone. Well, business advice that I learned was that marketing is superior to sales. Sounds simple, sounds cliche, but when I first started, and then when I was in the field specifically, I thought sales was the game and sales is everything. Sales is extremely important, but if you don't know how to brand yourself and market your business and what you guys are doing, and you don't carry yourself well, you're not going to make it. And that is something that I had to really learn and figure out. You know, I started the business when I was 26. I'm 31 now, and that was my biggest thing. Is I had to learn how to market the business, especially as we grew. And that is probably the best advice. And it's super simple. Marketing is superior to sales. But a lot of the guys that I talk to, or who are still in the field or whatever, it's sale, 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 which is true. And maybe they're just in the field. They're not necessarily running their own business yet, but it's still marketing themselves, how they show up to work, how they carry themselves, what they do. That's the advice as well to people is you need to brand yourself well and carry yourself well. We have guys that come into interviews and, shirts untucked, or they look like they didn't shower, and you're just like, that's still marketing right there. You're kind of like, well, what are you doing here? That doesn't look good. How are you supposed to sell yourself if you can't even market yourself? And that's why sales is second, because you need to get started first, and that's the marketing. Advice I could give, because I fell in love with the marketing side and how we brand. And I talk to people all the time, and they say that they see our billboards, they see our Facebook, they see our Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat, KRQE on the news. I am trying to be everywhere, because I know that we need to market in such a competitive field before I even worry about the sales. And I still do, I still have these meetings and stuff, but it's the fact that we need to get the calls to come in first.
I actually teach on mindset. I completely agree, man. How you see yourself, the way your mindset is, all of that is completely true from my standpoint. And I encourage people to understand you are a brand. Now, however way you want your brand to lay out, that's completely okay. But just understand that wherever you go, there you are. And whatever you want to say, that's what people are seeing. And that's the brand that you're putting out. And now sometimes people have to battle with the brand that they presented, because that brand doesn't really tell the story of who they really are. But that's just what we're seeing, and that's what we're going to see first, is that brand. So I completely agree, man. And we're always selling. At a job interview, you're selling, you're branding, and you're selling, and helping people understand that, I think, is really crucial as well, man. So I definitely appreciate that answer.
Yeah, I mean, but you also can't be, to add to what you're saying, you can't be extremely stubborn. You have to be willing to pivot. And I've learned that with business. I've learned that with every job that I've ever been into. To be honest, I had to learn how to pivot, because what happens is you have conversations with people and they're just so dead set on one thing, one idea. Well, this is just what I do. Well, this is all I know. Well, this is all I'm going to work on. And you're like, all right, but you have to be willing to pivot. I try to pivot all the time. As long as it's in the right direction, it's a forward movement. But that's another business. That's my own business advice is, don't be so hard-headed. You're going to have to pivot all the time.
All right, this has been a fantastic interview. I appreciate you taking the time. Now, when it comes to your business and where you are, you mentioned some social media stuff there. How can people get a hold of you, ask questions, hire you? Tell us all about how we can connect with you.
Yeah, I'm on Instagram, Brandon _Saiz. I'm on Facebook. I'm on TikTok. I'm on all that stuff. You can find me at my office. That's where I'm always at. And I'm always willing to have a conversation. I'm always willing to help people. And I know that this company is going to do some very good things. And I truly believe in what we're doing. So, you know, if you know someone looking for that job,
what's your website address?
ncbmechanical.com.
All right. ncbmechanical.com.
Yes,
Love
sir.
it. Well,
Yep.
brother, thank you so much.
Yeah. I really appreciate the time. It was really cool. And I hope this does some good things.
Absolutely, brother. Thank you so much. You
All
have a
right. Thank
wonderful
you, sir.
night.